Nelson's battles, the Untold Britain's battle for supremacy. What happens when a revolution explodes in the heart of Europe, and the world's most powerful navy decides it won't just watch from the shore? From the stormy cliffs of Cape Finisterre, where fog turned warships into ghosts, to the thunderous climax of the final reckoning, this is the story of how empires clashed, how revolutions spread like wildfire, and how one navy, the Royal Navy, became the sword and shield of a nation that refused to fall. But how did a foggy skirmish off the coast of Spain shape the fate of Europe? Why did Britain choose cannonballs over compromise? And what secret decisions led to the final brutal showdown that changed history forever? This isn't just history. It's a high-stakes thriller on the high seas. So grab your spyglass, tighten your rigging, and prepare to dive into a tale of betrayal, bravery, and battle. In 1792, the French Revolution ignited a firestorm across Europe. The execution of Louis XVI and the rise of the Radical Republic terrified monarchies from Vienna to London. France, now a revolutionary state, declared war on Austria, and soon Britain, Prussia, Russia, and others joined the fray. Thus began the French Revolutionary Wars, a brutal struggle that would evolve into the Napoleonic Wars, lasting nearly a generation. This wasn't just a war of borders, it was a struggle for mastery of Europe and the world, fought on land and sea, in deserts and frozen fields, from the Nile to the Caribbean. Amid shifting alliances, one rivalry endured: France versus Britain. Britain, unable to match France's armies on land, turned to its greatest weapon, the Royal Navy. Dominant on the waves, it strangled French trade, blockaded ports, and shattered fleets. And among Britain's many skilled commanders, one name rose above all: Horatio Nelson. Born in 1758 in Burnham Thorpe, Norfolk, Nelson was the sixth of 11 children. He joined the Navy at age 12, mentored by his uncle, Maurice Suckling. Despite illness and injury, he lost an eye in Corsica and an arm in Tenerife. Nelson's courage and tactical genius were unmatched. He became a national hero after victories at Cape St. Vincent, the Nile, and Copenhagen. Bold, inspiring, and brilliant, Nelson embodied Britain's defiance against Napoleon. His signal before Trafalgar, "England expects that every man will do his duty," became immortal. The fragile peace between Britain and France collapsed. Britain, Russia, and Austria formed the Third Coalition. Napoleon, now emperor, allied with Spain and prepared to invade Britain. He assembled a massive force at Boulogne, but first he needed to control the English Channel. His plan: concentrate naval force. French and Spanish squadrons scattered across ports would unite into a combined fleet, overpower the British, and clear the way for invasion. Napoleon chose Vice Admiral Pierre-Charles Villeneuve to lead the first phase. A veteran of the American War of Independence and the Battle of the Nile, Villeneuve was competent but cautious. He once wrote, "I have always sought a practical and useful career, as opposed to one filled with glory." In March 1805, Villeneuve slipped past Nelson's blockade at Toulon, joined Spanish ships off Cadiz, and crossed the Atlantic. But Nelson guessed wrong, racing to Egypt while Villeneuve headed for the West Indies. Nelson made the crossing in just 4 weeks, but missed Villeneuve by days. A lucky British frigate spotted Villeneuve's fleet heading not to the Mediterranean, but toward the Channel. Vice Admiral Calder was alerted. On July 22nd, Calder intercepted Villeneuve off Cape Finisterre. In heavy fog, the British captured 2 Spanish ships, but Villeneuve reached Ferrol. His orders were to sail to Brest and then the Channel, but fearing British forces to the north, and with his fleet battered, he retreated to Cadiz. Napoleon was furious. "Villeneuve does not possess the strength of character to command a frigate," he raged. The invasion was now impossible. Napoleon abandoned the invasion and marched his army east to face Austria and Russia on the Danube. Meanwhile, he ordered Villeneuve to sail to the Mediterranean to support operations in Italy. But Villeneuve, blockaded and demoralized, stayed put. Now pause for a sec. Join the front lines of history and power. Welcome to European battle, where epic clashes, legendary warriors, and untold stories come alive. By subscribing and turning on notifications, you're not just joining a channel. You're stepping into a world of thrilling battles, strategic brilliance, and jaw-dropping historical drama. From ancient empires to modern warfare, we deliver cinematic storytelling, expert insights, and exclusive content that will leave you breathless. Why subscribe? Unlock premium battle breakdowns and rare historical footage. Be the first to witness new episodes and live events. Join a passionate community of history lovers and strategy minds. Fuel your curiosity with facts, theories, and fierce debates. Don't just watch history, live it. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications to never miss a moment of the action. Your front row seat to Europe's greatest battles is just one click away. European Battle, where legends clash. The morning sun rose over the Atlantic, casting a golden sheen on the sails of the combined Franco-Spanish fleet just 10 miles northwest of Cape Trafalgar, bound for the Straits of Gibraltar. On board the flagship Bucentaure, Admiral Pierre-Charles Villeneuve faced a dire dilemma. British sails had been spotted on the horizon, closing in from the northwest. Should he flee to the Mediterranean or turn and fight? Haunted by Napoleon's fury and desperate to redeem his honor, Villeneuve chose battle. He ordered the fleet to reverse course and head back toward Cadiz. But this abrupt maneuver, combined with light winds and inexperienced crews, threw the fleet into disarray. What should have been a disciplined line became a ragged crescent, stretching over 5 miles of sea, a tactical nightmare. In stark contrast, the British fleet, led by Vice Admiral Horatio Nelson, was a model of cohesion and resolve. Nelson's men were seasoned, hungry for action, and inspired by their commander's presence. He had devised a plan weeks earlier, radical, daring, and brilliant. Rather than engage in the traditional line-to-line broadside exchange, Nelson would split his fleet into 2 columns, piercing the enemy line at right angles. This would divide the combined fleet into isolated segments, each to be overwhelmed before reinforcements could arrive. By 11 a.m., the British fleet was formed up and inching forward at a mere 3 knots, barely faster than a man walking. Nelson, aboard HMS Victory, ordered the signal that would echo through history. England expects that every man will do his duty. The message fluttered from Victory's mast, a beacon of resolve. Nelson would lead one column himself. The other was commanded by his trusted friend, Vice Admiral Collingwood, aboard HMS Royal Sovereign. At noon, the French 74-gun Fougueux fired the first ranging shots toward Royal Sovereign. The thunder of cannon fire built steadily, but the Franco-Spanish gunners were hampered by poor training and unstable platforms. Their ships rolled heavily in the wind, and most shots missed their mark. Victory's mizzenmast hoisted a new signal: engage the enemy more closely. It would remain there until shot away. At 12:30, Royal Sovereign reached the enemy line first, unleashing a devastating raking broadside into the stern of the Spanish flagship Santa Ana, splintering decks and killing scores. Minutes later, Victory passed astern of Bucentaure, Villeneuve's flagship, and fired a triple-shotted broadside, a storm of iron that crippled the ship and killed or wounded nearly half her crew. Despite these hammer blows, the British vanguard was in peril. Royal Sovereign was under fire from all directions. HMS Belle-Isle was completely demasted, HMS Mars was taking punishing fire, and Victory had become entangled with the French ship Redoutable, whose Marines were preparing to board. Nelson refused to let other ships shield him. Twice, British captains tried to overtake Victory to protect their admiral, and twice he ordered them back. He was determined to break the enemy line at the heart, targeting Villeneuve himself. His guess was right. Bucentaure was the flagship, and Victory's broadside shattered it. For 20 agonizing minutes, the British lead ships fought alone. Then, one by one, reinforcements arrived. HMS Téméraire joined Victory, firing into Redoutable and breaking the French Marines' assault. More British ships piled into the fray, each unleashing double-shotted broadsides, 2 cannonballs per gun, fired at close range. The battle devolved into a mass brawl, exactly as Nelson had intended. The enemy was trapped, unable to maneuver, pummeled at point-blank range. Smoke, fire, splinters, and screams filled the air. The sea itself seemed to boil. While the main battle raged like Poseidon's tantrum, Admiral Dumanoir's Franco-Spanish vanguard was doing its best impression of a confused parade float. They began an agonizingly slow turn to rejoin the fight. So slow, in fact, that one British sailor reportedly had time to knit a scarf, write a poem, and still reload his cannon. It would take over an hour before Dumanoir's ships were in position. By then, the battle was less naval engagement and more floating demolition derby. Enter Captain Henry Digby of the 64-gun HMS Africa. who had earlier become separated from the British fleet. Nelson had signaled him to withdraw to safety. Digby squinted at the signal, scratched his head and said, "Safety? Never heard of her." Instead, he charged straight into battle from the north, sailing solo past the entire enemy vanguard like a one-man brass band at a funeral. He traded broadsides with every ship he passed, then joined the attack on the Santissima Trinidad, the largest warship afloat, with 136 guns and enough firepower to make a volcano jealous. Meanwhile, Victory and Redoutable were locked in a brutal close-quarters slugfest. British guns smashed the French hull to splinters, while Redoutable's Marines assembled on deck to board Victory. It was about to get personal. But just as the French were preparing to leap aboard, HMS Temeraire appeared like a vengeful ghost on Redoutable's starboard side and blasted her deck with grapeshot, mowing down the boarding party. All three ships became entangled, drifting into another French ship, Fougueux, like a drunken conga line of destruction. Some French and Spanish ships, like Admiral Magon's Algeciras, had trained their crews for boarding and close combat. Dangerous foes, indeed. But every time they formed a boarding party, a British ship emerged through the smoke like a magician's trick and swept their decks with grapeshot, turning their ambitions into confetti. Superior British gunnery was slowly grinding down the enemy. One by one, the first French and Spanish ships hauled down their colors, the naval equivalent of saying, "We're out of snacks and morale." High atop Redoutable's mizzen mast, a French sniper spotted a glittering target on Victory's quarterdeck. It was Nelson, adorned with medals like a walking trophy cabinet. Against advice, he had refused to remove them. One musket ball plunged into his shoulder and down through his spine. "They finally succeeded," Nelson said. "I am dead." He was carried below, where he received frequent updates on the battle. Even in agony, he remained the commander. 3 hours into the battle, the French 74-gun Achille was under fire from multiple British ships. She caught fire. The blaze reached her grand magazine around 6 p.m., triggering an enormous explosion that obliterated the ship and killed half her crew instantly. It was the final, bloody punctuation mark on a battle that had already claimed 5,000 lives. Dumanoir's vanguard finally arrived. Only Intrepid made a determined attack. The others fired a few ineffective long-range shots, then veered away, like guests arriving late to a party and realizing it's already over. One captured Spanish crew was so enraged by this cowardice, they offered to open fire on their supposed allies. But Dumanoir's ships slipped out of range. They could see Villeneuve's fleet was beaten. More than a dozen enemy ships had surrendered. Nelson, hovering between life and death, whispered to Captain Hardy, "Take care of my dear Lady Hamilton. Kiss me, Hardy." A few moments later, "Thank God I have done my duty," and then he was gone. Nelson's last order had been to drop anchor, fearing bad weather. He was right. A ferocious Atlantic storm battered the fleet and its prizes. French frigates recaptured Santa Ana. 4 captured crews rose up, but 3 were driven ashore and wrecked. Of the 17 captured ships, only 4 were saved. The rest were burned or lost to the storm, which likely claimed more lives than the battle itself. As the storm raged over the battered British fleet, the sea reminded every sailor that victory doesn't guarantee safety. In Nelson's time, clean water was a matter of survival. Contaminated barrels could mean disease, dehydration, or death. And while we no longer sail into cannon fire, one threat still lingers in our homes: impure water. That's why we're proud to feature the home water filtration system, a modern solution to an age-old problem. What is it? A compact, easy-to-install system that filters out chlorine, heavy metals, bacteria, and microplastics from your tap water. Protects your kidneys and liver from long-term exposure to toxins. Improves hydration and skin health. Enhances the taste of your tea, coffee, and cooking. Reduces reliance on plastic bottled water. How it works: advanced multi-stage filtration mimics natural purification, removing harmful particles while preserving essential minerals. Why you need it? If you're over 45, your body's defenses aren't what they used to be. Clean water supports your immune system, digestion, and energy levels. It's not just about health, it's about peace of mind. A personal note: we've partnered with Amazon to bring you this product, and yes, we earn a small commission from every purchase made through our link. But we only recommend what we believe in. So, if you've enjoyed this journey through Britain's untold battles and you want to protect your own fortress, your home, click the link in the bio below. Because history teaches us one thing: true supremacy begins with what you protect. Protect your home like Nelson protected Britain. Clean water, better health, greater peace of mind. Find the link in the bio below. Amazon affiliate, your support helps us keep telling these stories. 2 weeks later, Dumanoir's escaping ships were intercepted off Cape Ortegal. All 4 were captured. Nelson's body was returned to England aboard Victory, preserved in a cask of brandy, lashed to the mainmast. He became the first non-royal to receive a state funeral since the Duke of Marlborough. His coffin, made from the timbers of the French warship L'Orient, was laid to rest in St. Paul's Cathedral, beneath a monument that still draws reverent crowds. News of Trafalgar took 4 weeks to reach Napoleon near Vienna. He was en route to his own victory at Austerlitz. But of the 2 battles, Trafalgar had far greater consequences. It ensured British naval supremacy for the rest of the Napoleonic Wars. It crushed Napoleon's hopes of invading Britain. It laid the foundation for British imperial dominance throughout the 19th century. The Royal Navy would not face a serious challenge again until Jutland, over a century later, before you sail off. If you've enjoyed this thrilling voyage through history, full of cannon fire, courage, and the clash of empires, don't let the story end here. Make sure to follow us, hit that subscribe button, and click the notification bell so you're the first to know when we drop more epic tales, legendary battles, and jaw-dropping moments from the past. We've got plenty more intrigue, drama, and historical firepower coming your way. And trust us, you won't want to miss a single shot. Thanks for being part of the crew. Now let's chart a course for the next great story.